Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Let's take a minute to talk about work culture in the UK and why it really creates an issue between people who have stuff and people who simply don't. This is something that I'm absolutely seeing playing out more and more in my comment sections as I make videos talking about working conditions in the UK and the way that the cost of living is simply spiraling out of control for most people. It's really quite interesting because I'm seeing people mainly who are older, mainly who are richer, and mainly who have exceptional circumstances talking about how the average person, specifically young people, are lazy. The thing is, guys, you have a look at why, you have a look at who's saying it. Like I say, it's people who have exceptional circumstances. Maybe they run a business, maybe they have generational wealth, maybe they have a very, very high paying job. And to a degree, you could say they've earned a high paying job. Then we've got the other people who are mainly pensioners, people who grew up in a time where the cost of living relatively was cheaper. Houses were affordable. They've got a house, it's the base, the majority of their net worth, their wealth. You know, that's where they get their money from, that's where a lot of their money is, I should say. And they grew up in a different time. They've grown up in a time where, to a degree, social mobility was easier, to a degree jobs paid more, to a degree jobs were more abundant. And again, they've reap the rewards of that. They've worked the jobs, and again, I'm not saying that it was easier back in those days. There's different times, different issues. It's not that one is better or worse, but they can't understand the issues that we have in today's market, and this is where things get really quite interesting. The first thing that I want to say is it's not just young people struggling. Middle-aged people, even some older people are struggling in today's market. On top of that, even professionals are struggling. Young professionals, right? We're being told all the time it's because young people don't want to get good jobs. The amount of people I know that have gone to university and still can't get a job, right? Now, we can all say with hindsight, yes, you should have got an apprenticeship, yes, you should have done this, yes, you should have done that, but we didn't know that at the time. And a lot of young people are pushed down a path of university. Irrespective of all of these facts, we're in a market now where we're seeing two groups of people. People who are the average people who are basically struggling to get by, people who, even if they're not struggling, they're seeing the cost of stuff increasing, and they're seeing a situation where in the future they could be struggling if things don't change. And again, then we've got the people who either are older, they've got assets, or somewhere in between, and they are not struggling. What this has created is, it's created a sort of mental gap of understanding. Again, all older people, or a lot of older people saying that young people are lazier, simply not the case. Simply not the case. And one of the bigger reasons why I think the work culture in the UK and a lot of the way that people view money will probably not shift anytime soon relates to this big point. There is a percentage of the population who is doing okay or very well, or okay enough so that they don't really feel the impacts and the increases in the cost of living, and then there's everybody else, right? And they're being told by businesses, by older people, by all different groups of people that the answer is simply just to work harder. But the issue with this is that, number one, even if they do, they won't get the same quality of life, and number two, where does this end? Where does this end? Obviously, people are going to have different circumstances. Obviously, people are going to have different opinions, and the times that people grew up in, are going to influence and create bias towards certain problems that they had to deal with. So I do understand where the old people are coming with. At the same time, let me give you a situation. A graduate job here in the UK, for a lot of industries, by the way, if you can even land one, that is, can pay you as much as 25 to, let's say, 30,000. In a lot of cities, you're looking at rent being a minimum of 12,000 a year. It's not that unrealistic. If you want to have your own place, it's 12,000 a year roughly. Then you've got some of your bills. Then you've got your council tax. Now, of course, this can vary from town to town. And here's the thing: we get a lot of older people saying, "Well, just get a house share, get a this," but they fail to acknowledge that this is not very right. Right? How are you in a market where you're paying 600, 700 a month for a house share? You have a room in a house. You have a room in a house for 700 a month. So like I say, you get your own apartment because I don't really think that's that unreasonable of a thing to do. Yes, it is first world privilege, but we live in a first world country, so kind of makes sense, right? So you try to get yourself an apartment, you're looking at 12k a year, easily. So if you're on 25, half of your money's already gone, and we've not even factored in taxes, which initially will have taken away from your salary, meaning that more than half of your money has gone. And a lot of people need to live in cities for their job, Because I hear that one a lot in the comments too. Well, you can move out to this town. You can, instead of living in Manchester, you can live in this place. Or instead of living in London, you can live in... People have got to commute, right? And when you work in, let's say, 8 to 10 hours a day, how are you going to add an extra 4 hours commute to that at least? Then you've got the cost of the trains, which doesn't even really help in any degree. It just makes things worse. Trains and buses in a lot of cities are ridiculously expensive now, so either way you're paying a lot of money. So just to get to work and to have a decent place to live in, you're already down about half of your salary. Easily. Then you've got the essentials. Food, right? And I've been saying this for some time. Food in the UK is expensive. I'm not talking about the fancy stuff. Go for a shop round Tesco's. Go for a shop round Lidl. I don't know, any of them. You'll quickly realise how quickly it adds up today. Then you've got clothes. And here's the thing, right? You're a young professional, so... or even an older professional. You've got to have corporate clothing, which doesn't really make that much sense because half of these corporate jobs are on Zoom, and it wouldn't really matter if you're wearing a t-shirt or a suit, in my humble opinion. But, okay, you've got to wear corporate clothing. Well, that's going to add an extra couple of hundred, at least, to the annual clothing bill. Then you've got to have your real clothes to wear in real life, because you can't wear nothing. Then you want to have fun. God forbid, right? Hear this in the comment section all the time. You know, younger people or poorer people, they should just be working, get their money up. God forbid you want to have fun, guys. God forbid you want to go out for a meal. God forbid you want to go on a date. God forbid you want to hang out with the boys and go for a Saturday night out, right? Not really my cup of tea thing to do, but if that's what you want to do. Where does the money come from? Where does the money go? So quickly you get priced out of a lot of luxuries, right? And again, it is privileged, it is a first world stance to have, but we're living in the UK, so this is where it gets interesting. We can acknowledge all of these facts, but then we still got older people saying, no, it's not. But they don't understand one thing. These high-paying jobs are not as common as they think. A lot of companies are laying workers off. Wages are not increasing that much. Cost of living is increasing by a lot. It's becoming very difficult for a lot of people, and I think the real reason why we're not going to see the work culture or the culture around money shift in any major meaningful way in the UK is because of this two-tier divide, right? And people can't understand other people's struggle. You see, money and numbers is relative. I had somebody saying the other day that 25k a year is a lot. And in theory it is. But numbers don't matter. It's about percentages. Let me give you an example. In theory, £1 would be a lot. If your rent is 25p, then £1 in theory could have the same value, in theory, of 100k. Right? Because it's about percentages. So 25,000 in theory is a lot. But then when you start to take away the cost of food, the cost of rent, the cost of... These people cannot afford a house to own. Probably ever. At least not in the next probably 10, 15 years. It's going to take them forever to save up for a deposit. And then we expect people to be happy about the situation that they're in. Well, of course they're not going to be. And then I'm hearing all of these older people saying, just work harder, try get better paying jobs. Well, we've already established that they're not every corner like people think they are. You can't just walk into a place and get a high paying job. You absolutely can't. And then we talk about working harder. Well, most people are already working full time, right? Most people who are young professionals, older professionals, I don't know, even your average shop worker, whatever, they are working full time. So now what we're talking about working 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week. It's getting ridiculous, guys. It's getting to a point where the standards or the expectations that a lot of people are creating are difficult and impossible. And I feel like that's why the work culture and the vibe that people have is never going to change, because they can't understand the struggle of the other side. People who don't have money can't understand why old people think the way that they do, or richer people think the way that they do. And people who do have money, they can't understand the fact that, you know, in today's market, a house costs like 6, 7, 8 times income at least, whereas back in their day it cost maybe 4 times income, right? They can't understand the fact that food is that expensive. It's concerning. They can't understand that the UK has some of the highest energy bills in the world. They fail to acknowledge all of this sort of stuff because they built their wealth in a time where things were different. I'm not saying easier, but different. And, you know, then we got people who landed high-paying jobs, perhaps because of lucky circumstances or exceptionalism, because some people are exceptional. Most people aren't. But now we're creating an environment where the exception, being wealthy older people, being people who have professional careers because they had a good education, perhaps due to, parental influence or even due to self-influence, people who worked very hard and got 80 hours a week and built a business and stuff like that. These people are the exception. But we're creating a vibe now where we're kind of looking down on the average working person, telling them to do more and more, and failing to understand that even if they did, the situation wouldn't be that great. Not everybody wants to have a Lamborghini, not everybody wants to have 50 rental properties. What most people in the UK are asking for at the minute is nothing like that. They're not asking to be rich, they're asking to just have enough money to not have to worry and struggle and get in debt at the end of every month. But until people really start to realise that, people who can't really fathom that experience, people who don't understand that style of life, until they can understand this, I don't think things are going to change. I don't know, guys, a bit of a rant video. Let me know your thoughts. I'm sure you will, and I guess I'll see you again in another one. Goodbye for now.